There's this type of architecture that's spreading around the world a lot like a disease that can't be contained, and it is a threat to your culture and my culture and literally every single culture out there. Because cultures are defined by so many things, but one of them is their architecture, and this style is becoming a hyper-globalized standard that everyone is being forced to adapt, and it's basically silencing the use of architecture as a medium for cultural expression. This style is parametricism, and this is a video on why I hate it. We live in a world where a lot of people are very peripherally interested in architecture. They don't really know that much, and that's fine. But it means right now the most hated style by sort of these casuals is probably 5/1s, and rightfully so. They're not great. But parametricism is a lot more abhorrent and is the bigger threat. It's spreading to your city's housing, offices, public infrastructure, institutions, even parks. Quick bit here, what is parametricism before I go any further? Technically, parametricism just means computer procedurally generated architecture. That's a very fancy way of saying you put in a little bit of a sample, so you make one bit of a wall or a building, and then you can just drag and stretch that out to whatever space you need to fill, and it'll automatically make the rest of the building fill that gap. Colloquially, parametricism is getting a bit broader of a definition to just mean sort of any of this 21st century hyper-financialized architectural style. That's a bit more what I mean with it, but I do also want to focus on the sins of that computer system, which I'll talk about later. Now, I'm Canadian, so I'm going to talk a lot about how it's affecting and silencing Canadian culture, specifically within Toronto, but that's just the example I'm using. You can really plug in your culture and you'll see that it's true as well. Essentially, for all of its history, Toronto had a distinct architectural style. In the early days of Toronto, this was workers' cottages. Slightly later, it was Bay and Gables. Then it was 30s post-war little Portugal townhouses. I don't know what to call them. I'll put a photo up. Then it was these garage houses. Pick a decade in Toronto, and there is a unique style that goes along with that. And that's beautiful. That's incredible. All of these styles were uniquely Torontonian, and if you drove 5 hours or 15 hours away, you wouldn't see them because every city had different needs and different cultures, so they had different styles rise up, and this is the beauty of architecture. Seemingly every building, every public pool, every library, every new high school that's built looks like it could be in Toronto, London, Dubai, Shanghai, Miami, Vancouver, wherever. And those neighborhoods that I talked about that do have this character, that do have this unique cultural style, are being bulldozed to be replaced by said homogenous slop. And the thing with parametricism is this is the new goal for architectural firms. This is exactly what their wet dreams are about, because it's so cheap and it's so repeatable. And because the thing with parametricism is those samples that you start with and then you drag to the whole building, it's really hard to make one of those. So when you have one that works, you're just going to use it everywhere. You're going to interchange it with other studios, with other branches of your international architecture firm. You're gonna pass it around. And yeah, every major architecture firm in the world is leaning into parametricism. All of these major firms are working together inadvertently, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to turn architecture away from a unique art form into globalized slop. Because a Canadian building, for Canadians to use, on Canadian land, in Canada, built for Canadians, should have a Canadian connection to it. One of the things about Canada's culture is we are defined by the fact that there are a lot of cultures within us. So this isn't me saying it has to look, good old-fashioned, old-stock Canadian. No, it can look a variety of ways, but, it should be connected to the country that it is in and representing. For the first time in history, cities around the world are losing their unique styles and are all starting to look like each other in alarming ways. Think about how much GeoGuessr would suck in 50 years when every city looks the same. Part of this is also just a long-going thing I talk about on this channel where, we were brainwashed to believe density would solve all of our housing crises, and then they go, you need density, you need 80-story buildings, you need parametricism, you need what we have now. Imagine if all of a sudden the biggest music software in the world stopped letting other ethnicities use their instruments. No more horns in Arabic music, no more funk undertones in Brazilian pop, no more anything. It just all had to be the same everything. Music would suck. That's what's going to happen with architecture. And there's a second issue with parametricism. I don't know if it's as big to you, but it's pretty important to me. Its origins. When Zaha Hadid started playing around with parametricism and it started to catch on, she quickly put her footing in one specific type of environment. She made sure parametricism started its origins in one specific setting. And that setting is national storytelling buildings for terrible countries. Think big flashy malls put forward by slave states like Dubai to try to entice Westerners. Think the Chinese Communist Party headquarters, a dictatorial regime culturally genociding Muslims in the western half of their own country. Countries like Azerbaijan wanted to look modern and impress the world, so they hired Zaha Hadid and they used parametrism to try to do that. And that's that second problem. Not only are we losing our cultural buildings for this one new style that's going to be everywhere in the world, that one new style has its origins in countries that don't respect women's freedoms, that don't have press freedoms, that don't have democracy, that don't value queer people, that don't value trans people, that have slaves. So why then are we erasing our own culture to replace it with a culture that originated in these terrible regimes? Because, I don't know, to me it's that deep that when we build everything parametric, what we're doing is we're saying, you know how Toronto looks like its own cool, unique city? What it really should look like is a country where women don't have rights, gay people are beaten, and it's run by slaves. So what's the solution then? Shockingly simple. Regulate. We have so many laws regulating what we build already. For example, some cities have X% of a building has to be affordable. Or more broadly, every city basically has laws that are like, you can't build a giant thing if it's going to block light from a park, if it's going to block light from people's backyards. Like, you have to think about sunlight when you build a building. Should we not then also have a law that says, hey, this super big visual skyscraper that you can't miss should channel our values and our culture and not this 7 degrees removed from us slop that puts forward actually notions of terrible, awful regimes? We do not have any shortage of ways we can build a culturally relevant, beautiful building. But instead of any of that cultural building, we're hiring a German guy's firm with architects in London to build us libraries and skyscrapers on city blocks they've never been to that they don't understand the history or weight of. That's the problem.